Books transform lives. They are bridges from your current self to your best self. And who better to show you the way to the top than those already there? Welcome to the book I am reading, a weekly sit down with accomplished Nigerians where we find out what they are currently reading and how that book shapes their worldview. My name is Richard Mofe-Damijo, and I'm your host with probably the most. My friend today is Dr. Nonso Egemba, better known as the Aproko doctor. He's a medical doctor who shares health-related lifestyle advice with his over 1 million followers on Twitter. Hey, Nonso, or should I call you Aproko doctor? Welcome to the book I'm reading. I like there's something about the average Igbo name. There's something that's
denotes strength.
Yeah, it's very strength always, Egemba, like my fist just goes when I say that. But before I even ask you what book you're reading and why you're reading and who the author is, talk to me about Aproko doctor. How did you end up with a name like that? Aproko is like calling you Amebo doctor.
Exactly.
but in this time when they say that, it's in good light. So.
Yeah. So I think it all started while I was in my 4th year in medical school. We were introduced to the clinics, and I kept seeing a repeated number of patients come back to the hospital worse than they came the first time. And so, it started bugging me. Is it that these people don't understand what the doctor is saying or don't understand the gravity of their illness? And I decided to craft a way to make this message more accessible to them. And so I knew if I had come as the doctor, it would still give that gap that, Nigerians have with doctors. And so I had to be the doctor who is literally in your business, who talks about everything, who talks about it in a manner you probably don't want to hear it. And so Aproko doctor was more serendipity because it just came out of nowhere, and I just decided to stick with it.
I love moments like serendipity. Yeah, they are amazing moments. Aproko doctor. I'm the worry boy, so the word is just so. but it's a good thing. Yeah, I remember a friend of mine. God bless his memory. He came up with a phrase for us lawyers, and he ran a program that he calls "Waiting lawyers they do safe."
Nice.
Now, waiting lawyers they do safe.
Nice.
So,
I like that.
So he broke it down so people could relate to the law. But we're not here to talk about what lawyers are doing. It's what a doctor like you is doing, and what book are you reading now, and why are you reading it, and who is it written by?
So the book I'm reading now is called Mindsets by Carol Dweck. Why am I reading it now? If you had asked me what my greatest fear 5 years ago was, I would have told you failure. It used to be, spontaneous. What's your greatest fear? Failure. What's your greatest fear? Failure. Until I realized that particular thought pattern was actually restricting me in many ways. And so I started looking for a book that was going to help me break out of that mindset. And, just like it turned out, there actually is a book called Mindsets by Carol Dweck.
What is the best lesson from Mindsets by Carol?
The best lesson in that book is that you can do anything if you put your mind to it. It's not a aspire to acquire kind of book because, we're used to that, motivational kind of books. It's more of, this is data on how your mindset actually restricts you in certain areas of your life. So she went on about there are 2 kinds of mindsets. There's a growth mindset and there's a fixed mindset. Now, in the fixed mindset, we like to believe that, we're smart, we're talented, and we avoid situations that try to challenge us. When the growth mindset, it's more of, if I fail at this, then it means there's something I've not learned yet. And so they're open to learning. So the growth mindset focuses on learning, while the fixed mindset focuses on proving. And it's strange because as children, we all have a growth mindset. As babies have the growth mindset when they start walking. A baby starts walking, falls, stands up again, and continues until they start walking, except they have a developmental issue. But at some point during our development, most people switch over to the fixed mindset. And that's when, we start to crave that words of affirmation from our parents. Oh, you're smart. And when you do that...
Is it a subconscious switch or it's a deliberate switch?
So it's subconscious.
From the growth mindset to the
fixed mindset. So it's subconscious. And why it's subconscious is because we don't actually know we're doing it. So we hear a lot of you're smart. It's either you're smart or you're stupid. And so we try to not fit in any box. So when a child has been called smart for too long, it's almost as if you're placing that child on a pedestal. And so that child tries to avoid situations that make them not look smart. You don't even need to read and you pass. And does it mean if I read, I'm not smart enough? Does it mean if I work hard at this, I'm not smart enough? And
that's a very interesting perspective.
Yeah.
Yes.
and that's in itself changed my thoughts about a lot of things, because I could see a lot of myself in the people she was describing. I used to be, in quote, let me use that word, smart kid while I was in school. And I got into
after all, in year 4, you had that moment, and you started being a Aproko doctor.
So throughout primary school, I was, top 3, top 4, got into secondary school, top 1, top 2, top 3. And I got into university and it was a whole different ballgame. I actually started feeling...
You
met people top 3
from all...
Yes.
All, yeah. What school did you go to?
I went to Unizik.
Unizik?
Yes, Nnamdi University.
Okay.
And
I won't bring any talk of Unizik being the best school for medicine, but it's okay. We're not here to talk about you, which is the best school. You are a Aproko doctor, that's what's important.
And we know Unizik is better than Uniben, but...
It's fine. Like I said, we're not going to get into that.
Yeah, so... I had like a rude awakening, because I could see myself failing courses. 56 over 100.
56 was a failure for you?
In medical school.
Okay.
From someone who, it's 90 and above, down to 56, and you struggle to get 56. And a lot of us actually shrunk because we started to see it as a reflection of ourselves. So it was more, this 56 is me, because it's challenging. It's not.
It's not like you said. It's not. I have not learned something
exactly.
yet. So let me.
Yeah. So okay. we were trying to prove ourselves, and this 56 is a reflection of me. It's not a reflection of the process. It's not a reflection of my ability to learn. I'm trying to prove myself, and this is what I was able to get. So that's me. And it affected so we now started to avoid courses that would give us 56.
Being a smart kid.
And so we started to look for other ways to get higher than 56. And, we started cramming. And I think that a lot of people in school have this mindset, because people just want to pass, because passing proves that you're smart. It doesn't prove that you're learning. It proves that you're smart.
Which is a fundamental flaw in our educational system.
Exactly.
Do you think that there is a Nigerian mindset? And if there is it necessarily a bad thing? And is there a way that recommending this book to everybody fix it? Because I feel like I'm in Psychology 101 class with you right now.
So yes, there's a Nigerian mindset which encompasses a lot of things.
Is it growth or fixed?
I believe it's more fixed than growth.
That's not good.
It's not at all, because there's a Nigerian mindset of Oyibo Beta Pasos. There's the Nigerian mindset of...
I'm going to interrogate that later, but I'll let you finish with the thesis.
Yeah,
okay.
So there's a Nigerian mindset of if your papa no get money, you no go make them for Nigeria. If you no get connections, you no go make them. It's born out of a lot of things, probably experiences, people's experiences. But if we could change that mindset, because the moment I read this book, I recommended it to everyone around me. I said, I think you should go ahead and read this book because it's changing my life and I think it will change yours. And changing that mindset is going to come from looking at the events in our lives and taking responsibility for them. Because it seems like a hard thing to say, but I've come to introspect many times and see that I am where I am because there are certain things I don't know. If I knew certain things, I would be at a different point. And I wish everyone had that, chance, opportunity to read that book. That way you could look at the event in your life and not attribute it to something else. Because the fixed mindset does not take responsibility at all. So when they encounter a hard task, it's a task that is bad. It's not them.
It's not them that are not smart enough.
Exactly, because I believe I'm smart. So the fact that I'm not able to pass this, it means that either the teacher was bad or the test is bad or, it's just not for me.
I'm in a sense happy that I don't have a fixed mindset, because from following your analysis, I'm of the mindset that if I don't know, if I fail at something, that means I have not learned it enough. So what I do is to go and learn it and master it, so that I can be good at it. And I like to experiment with new things. Does that make me growth mindset or fixed? Because I don't know now. So let me not go and walk borderline and think that I'm a growth mindset.
It's growth actually, and it's a wonderful mindset to have. But I think it's more of a spectrum, or rather, she explained it as more of a spectrum. So there's no clear line.
Okay.
In some areas in our lives, we operate at a growth mindset. In certain areas, we may operate at a fixed mindset.
It's like me in my head. You can't teach me languages. I keep saying to myself, I don't have an ear for languages. I don't have an ear for languages. Now I believe it. So that's not good.
Yeah, it's
not. As progressive a mindset that I think I have, that's not good.
So in certain areas, we are different mindsets. I, for one, it's coincidental, but I, for one, I love acting.
Yeah. So if I have a bell, get me a bell. So, I need to be ringing bells when I feel inspired.
Yeah. So but I did not go to. I'm not a thespian. I did not go to the school of acting. But there are certain.
Here's the good news: you don't have to. I can teach you, but go on.
Yes. Do we have this moment on camera? Yes, he said he's going to teach me.
Yeah, I can. So. I can. As you do medical things for me, we'll do barter. There's banking closely tied to this program. So barter is a major area of
so
of exchange,
there are certain scenes or there are certain acts I see from certain people. And the next thing I want to do is replicate them. And so I go in front of my mirror and I try to replicate those scenes, replicate the emotions behind those scenes. And in a way, it has evolved or, found a way to get into my work. Because what I do is basically behavioral change communication. I try to change people's behaviors and habits using every method possible. So at first it was tweets, but now it's evolving more to stories. And so I use stories.
Nigerians love stories.
Yeah.
By the way. So stories.
Yeah.
Work.
So I now use stories. And that's me having to enter a new phase or a new dimension that I've never entered before. It's me having to put on a character and having to act and having to have stories. I have created characters. There's the TBIR who has his whole this thing. There's the madman.
I love this
man. So
you do beyond Aproko in general.
Yeah.
In fact, they're all Aprokos, but they're just Aprokos with names.
Yes. So it's more of a strata. Of course, there are certain areas in my life where I struggle to get out of that fixed mindset. And I know it. And I think it's important that we know it first. Because when you know it, you now know what areas you need to work on. For example, even in relationships, there are people, when you ask what your ideal person is, must be tall, smart, dark, and when that kind of person is not coming, they begin to see themselves as non-deserving.
Oh.
Rather than seeing people as a work in progress.
How do we change all of this? Earlier on I said when you were talking about the average Nigerian, when I asked you if there is a Nigerian mindset and you were talking about they're not going to make it and all that. How do we begin to even interrogate this and change that for our people so that our people can in a sense, I feel like that's what motivational speakers are doing every day. If you fall, get up. That's what pastors are shouting for, every day from the pulpit. You can be more, you can be better, you can be bigger. If you put your mind into anything, you can achieve it and all that. So, is there something that the book can teach us in trying to change the Nigerian mindset, of not being good enough? If my partner gets money, I'm not gonna make him. If I, how can this book help us? Or what have you gleaned from this book that you can use to help people to begin to,
change their mindset.
Change their mindset and get more growth mindset as opposed to fixed mindset?
So the first thing I learned was it's not a reflection of you as a person. And yes, it's challenging where we are as a nation, generally, almost in every sector. But we should not see it as a reflection of ourselves. Because the moment we start to see it as a reflection of ourselves, we look for something or someone to blame. And if we are honest with ourselves, all we've done, both the Nigerian people and the leaders and everybody up to this very point, has been looking for something to blame, rather than look inward and ask ourselves, how am I contributing to this? What part am I playing to contribute to this?
To change the narrative.
Is there
my own little space?
Is there something I can learn? Is there someone I can learn it from? Because the growth mindset is concentrated on learning. And you can learn from even a failure.
Your worst experiences.
Exactly, because
even a complete collapse of leadership or whatever,
something can be learned from it. And I think that's where we need to get to as a nation. I don't think we learn from events. I think events...
I tend to agree with you.
Yeah, so I think events happen, they pass, and we forget about it, only to see that same event repeat itself in another form. But because we haven't learned any lessons from the previous one, we repeat the same mistakes over and over again. And that contributes a long way to where we are currently, because we're not learning the same mistakes. If you don't pass this test, we'll not go to the next class.
Is that the thesis of this book, the major thesis of this book?
The major thesis of this book is the growth mindset is focused on learning. The fixed mindset is focused on proving.
And definitely it recommends that we should be focused on learning, because like you said, it doesn't matter what we're going through if we keep looking at it, learning from it. And just like that famous phrase by the Jews when they say never again, when they talk about the pogrom. I don't know if it is privilege or if it is me not being aware or me operating in a bubble, or because I believe that I have a growth mindset. I don't believe that even today, with the democratization of the entire space by technology, that mindset is still what is prevalent. Or am I wrong? That's why I said I was going to challenge that. Is that still what the mindset is, or is there data to support that from your experience?
So from my experience, yes, Nigerians in certain spheres are changing the narrative. They are learning. Nigerians are creating. We're getting into new spaces that we never were. When you look at the fintech space, for instance, you would have thought in the last 10 years that we would be at this point. I think I heard somewhere that the banking sector in Nigeria seems to be one of the best in the world, and it's a good surprise when you hear things like that. But a country is not made up of pockets of people or small number of people doing things.
Great things.
It's made up of everybody, or the majority of the people
pulling in one direction.
Pulling in one direction. And if we don't have that number yet, if we have more of that defeatist mindset, people trying to prove certain things to other people, look at the thing on the street. Do you know who I am? For instance, there seems to be a Nigerian thing or a Lagos thing. I think it comes from that mindset where, people need to prove themselves. They put you in a position that, automatically you get the impostor syndrome, And rather than you trying to learn or, ensure that things are better, most people in those positions tend to want to prove themselves. So they look for easier challenges. They look for things to massage their ego rather than, putting yourself in strange positions for them to learn.
I just upgraded you to Psychology 201. I want to ask you a question, and I'd like to hear your perspective on this. I find myself overcompensating as a Nigerian when I'm abroad or when I encounter a foreigner, because in my mind, let me use mindset. I have a mindset of he doesn't think much of where I come from. In as far as he's concerned, we're all fraudsters and 419 and ritualists and all of that. And I find that I've been traveling around Africa quite a bit of late, and I get that. What kind of mindset is that? When I overcompensate and try and do things extra, I try to be nicer and try and represent my flag. That look, we are not like this. We are, I may even be aggressive in terms of in trying to drill down to say, look, not all Nigerians are like that. You can't judge a people by a few bad eggs and all of that. What kind of mindset is that?
So I think it's more of a mixture of certain things, but it's the crux of it is you're trying to prove something. You're not trying to learn something, because in the process of proving something, you may be blind to that person's own perspective. So what I would do in situations like that is learn. I would listen to the other person. Why do you think Nigerians are this? Or why do you think Nigerians are that? Maybe that conversation may never come up.
Even without, that's why I said that. I want to ask you that question, because it doesn't even have to come up. You see it in the body language.
They get all defensive.
Yes, you see it in body language, and there are times when it comes up in conversations. I remember in one of the conversations, it was like, "Well, you Nigerians have thought us 419. The Nigerians are here. Most of your boys here are doing 419. We don't see what they do 9 to 5, but they have money. They drive cars and all of that. So, explain that to me." So that's what I've had to deal with that. So in a sense, now that you're saying this, I can see that there are times when I operate with a fixed mindset.
Yes, and
that is beginning to bother me, because I'm now going to make a conscious effort to learn from all of this.
I think it's more making peace with certain facts. That I, as a person, I'm not responsible for the actions of others.
Yeah.
So I'm not responsible for how you see this person.
I'm just going to do me.
Yes.
And
so
you deal with it.
I'm just me. Let your experience be that. Oh, when I met, can I say Richard?
Yes.
Yeah. So you say, when I met Richard, he was this, and he was that, and he was that. And sometimes it could be that single experience that, could reach something that I think Richard changed my expression or my perception about Nigerians. It doesn't have to be because, in quotes, Richard was overcompensating and, he needed to act a certain way. Because sometimes we as humans have a very, very powerful intuition. We can tell when the person is not it. We can tell when the person is acting. We can tell when the person is overcompensating. And that in its own does not tend to build or make trust possible. So I think it's more common peace with the fact that I am not responsible for the actions of others.
What are you? Most people will say, I would say that I usually would just first say I'm a child of television, because I watch a lot of television, but I also read a lot because television didn't start on time. So I also read a lot. Well, what are you? Are you a product of books or both? Or television?
Books.
For you, growing up, was it escape, or you were forced to read by your parents, or what was it? How did you discover books?
So it's I did not come from a privileged background. Funnily enough, my childhood days, I could remember my mom giving me pap to sell on the junction. So I would go to
Where
the
were you- where did you
junction.
grow up?
I grew up in Aguda, Surulere.
Okay.
So I would go to the junction with a bucket of pap that was supposed to finish by evening or by the end of the day, and sit down by a stool. And it was just a day of sitting down, waiting for someone to walk up to you and say, I want to buy Ogi.
Yes.
I want to buy pap. And there was nothing else I could do. And so I sat down with my book, or I found books.
You would carry your
Yes.
book.
So I would carry a book to the junction, and that was my companion for the day. And over time, I grew to love it. So it was more of an escape from reality when I look at it, because yes, in those books I could travel, because it was more fiction. I wasn't really in mindsets when I was 9 or 10 years old. I could travel in those books.
Yeah.
I could live other experiences.
Get
in those
lost
books.
from
Yes.
that immediate
Exactly.
depressing environment and just do whatever
And
it is
just
that you
do
want to
it.
do. Today, the kids will probably carry a phone and get and travel through Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or whatever, or porn.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if I should even bother, but because we're dealing with the mind, with mindset, what do you generally think about, the media, new media and books, and all that, as it affects
the
our
mindset.
mindset?
So
Do you think we are better off now, or we are better off being stuck with the traditional
books.
ways? Yes.
I think we're better off now. Why? Because you can access a lot in so short a time.
But are people doing that though?
That's the problem. So, because you can access a lot, there is the option of binging, and so many people just for hours and hours and hours and hours they're in new media. And I got worried when new media became a thing, because I was one of the people who initially started shouting on the new media. I don't think we should spend so much time. Babies should not spend so much time on media. Until I read an article that told me it's not just about the amount of hours people were spending online. It was more about what they were doing online. And it now calls for conscious creators
to create stuff
that can help change or affects mindsets. Here now lies the dilemma. You have to do it in a way that doesn't make it look like I'm learning, because learning has been seen as boring.
It's overrated.
Yeah. And so we need to change that perspective by making learning easy.
But so here's the thing though, with the way the world goes, talking mindsets, fixed and progressive or learning, people always just tend to go for the easier ones. Like you said, they will rather not go into the problem of trying to educate and entertain at the same time. They just want to just entertain and be frivolous, and because they will tell you frivolity is easier and cheaper to create and draws a lot more crowd and gives you bigger views. And
I agree.
Unfortunately,
Unfortunately.
yeah.
But I think
so. That's why I'm a bit worried if we are in a better space. The tendency is to agree with you that yes, we should be better because we have everything now. We don't have to look at board mass through those difficult tables and all of that, and have access to Google and all that. But are we Googling the right things? I was a bit disturbed when I saw again on a funny program that Nigeria is the leading country or so for porn.
Yeah.
That and we talk about internet penetration being at 0, but how come when it comes to that, we suddenly our internet penetration is like so high that people who have bandwidth that they can sell for free like vaccines are not watching as much porn as we are.
So I think when you talk about Maslow hierarchy of needs, there's the need for self I can't seem to find the word. So when you talk about Maslow hierarchy of needs,
self-love?
No. So it's self-determination is more at the top. And then at the lower level, you have things like food, shelter, and then you have, pleasures. So it takes a person, who has understood certain things, or who has conquered the need for food, the need for shelter, the need for, pleasure. They've conquered themselves to an extent to now begin to go for knowledge, or, the need for self-determination, and then, how do I attribute or give more to society? So a lot of people are still at those first two levels. It's more about what I can eat now.
So porn is what I can eat now?
It's more about my pleasures. It's these things at this particular point in time. Am I saying that there are other countries in the world that do not subscribe to porn and all that? No. But most times, yes, they're just at a different level of development.
Look, I just ask the question because I can ask it. I know the answer already, but who would you recommend this book to? There was an answer that I got from Kiki that really excited me about how she responded to this question when I asked her. So who would you recommend this book to?
Everyone, actually. Everyone, because sometimes we, especially in this part of the world, are a product of not just nature but nurture. We're a product of how we're raised. Funnily enough, I was with Kiki outside and we're discussing about how a child actor talked back to her and said, Kiki, you're a good director but a bad actor. Now, that was never seen in our days. Children were meant to be...
You will hyperventilate.
Exactly. I was at a program where I had to talk to kids, and I had this particular kid who was always asking me those very difficult questions, and he was asking it and he expected to be answered. Mm-hmm. And for me, it was strange because when I was at his age, I couldn't talk back to adults. So it was what the adults said that was fine. Now, if I were to recommend this book, I would first recommend it to people who are, millennials and above, and say, look, yes, I know you've grown. I know you've learned a lot of things. But I think you should also be aware that, I probably am a product of how I've been raised thus far. My mindset up to this particular level might be a reflection of how I was raised. It could be because, I was always being compared to Junior down the streets. And so I shut off learning and I said, reading books is not for me. So millennials and above first. And before, I would now come down to the Gen Zs and say, I think you should read this book.
Gen Zs. All right. That's a good place to hold it. So when we get back from this break, Nonso and I will play a game.
Let me introduce a new wave, we change the rules. A new app that you can use. Wanna change your life, then choose. Save money and invest. Pay bills when you decide. Safe and secure for you when you need a loan. Request it. One bank for you, one bank for me. So chill and enjoy the ride. Stop the current account on it. One bank.
One Bank by Sterling. Open a current account and start transacting.
Welcome back. I'm RMD and he's Dr. Nonso Egemba. And this is the book I am reading on Radio Now, 95.3 FM. Before we play the game, just one more question before we play the game. I'm looking at you and I'm wondering why you are still here in this country, for instance. I know what doctors earn in the Americas, Canada to London to the US. Does this have anything to do with what your mindset is about your country, or brain drain and everything? Why are you still here? Simple question.
If I had deposits every time I got that question, I probably
be the richest man in Babylon.
Probably. I am still here because there's still a lot more I can add. I know it sounds cliche. It sounds, like the thing you would always hear from someone who has "I have a dream" moments and all that. But I still think that there is so much more that Nonso Egemba can add to Nigeria. When I started all this, it was because I wanted to help the average Nigerian on the streets live a healthier life. Nigeria has one of the worst health indices in the world. We are like 3 places above the last country in the world, and that's bad.
And what is the last country?
I can't seem to remember, but I think it's more of those war-torn countries.
That's really bad.
It is.
Just 3 space.
Just 3 places above. Just 3 places above. It's 177 all out of 180 or so. Yeah, so just 3 places above. And a lot of this pressure is on our health system. And I still want to prevent, or rather give chance for that health system to develop and become something better. How do I do that? It's to prevent more people from overflooding the hospitals. And so
so you don't have to come.
So you don't have to come, so that the hospitals can have time to grow. We can get the manpower for what we need to do. And that's why I do what I do. I am not able to, or not able to, because that's the wrong mindset. Because I have decided to choose this particular path because I would reach more people. The doctor speaking as a doctor cannot reach the number of people I am able to reach because I have chosen not to speak like a doctor. Naturally, when I'm on sets, or when I'm acting, or if you watch my IG videos, it sounds different. I'm more playful. I'm more there. It begs the question: is this guy really a doctor? And
true, sir. No,
yeah.
so you be doctor.
Yeah.
Like if I won't now, you cheat me.
Yeah. But it's still part of what I'm trying to do. Change that narrative, help people become better. And I don't think I've achieved that yet. And maybe until I do, I don't know what the future holds. But at this point, leaving Nigeria is not one of the...
It's not an option.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I have some questions that I have set up in front of me, so I'm going to now... They have choices, so don't worry. And not putting you in a small mind, not putting you in a fixed mindset. But you're smart. You're a smart Aproko man.
Let us all know that if I don't get some of these questions correctly, it's not a reflection of myself.
That's it. You just haven't read certain things.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so question 1. Dash was used as money in pre-colonial Africa. A, sticks. B, stones. And C, cowries.
I think it's cowries.
Smart.
We're headed to lots.
I don't care if you think that is putting you in a fixed mindset, but you're a brilliant boy. You're a brilliant Aproko doctor. Okay, so question 2. In what century was the transatlantic slave trade abolished?
Okay.
Transatlantic slave trade abolished. A, 18th century. B, 19th century. And C, 17th century.
I'll go for 19th century. A lot of things happened during that period.
Well, some other guests of mine, they failed the 2 questions. So it's good to have one that passed the 2, right? And that's the correct answer.
Yeah, so when am I getting the alert?
The alert. Yeah. I'll call Sterling back to see if we can make a difference.
No problem.
No, so I want to thank you for coming to the book I'm reading. It's been an amazing pleasure just conversing with you.
Thank you.
And I hope that you probably populate the book space too someday by putting your thoughts, if you haven't already done that, putting your thoughts on paper, since you're a child of books, so that some disadvantaged kid somewhere can pick up your book and sit by a junction and kill some time whilst waiting for people to come buy their ogi.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you.
Now, guys, don't go away. You know how we do. Sure, it's not over yet. I have to tell a story. Nigerians love stories, and I have to tell a story. So when I come back, it will be story time. I will tell stories about banking.
Let me introduce a new wave, we change the rules. A new app that you can use. Wanna change your life, then choose. Save money and invest. Pay bills when you decide. Safe and secure for you when you need a loan. Request it. One bank for you, one bank for me. So chill and enjoy the ride. Stop the call and to count on it. One bank.
One Bank by Sterling. Open a current account and start transacting.
It's story time. Are you comfortable? Good. Now, you know, every week we'll learn something new about banking from The Truth About Banking, a book by Sterling Bank. Last time we learned about the rise of modern banking in the US of A. Today, we'll explore banking in the time of the transatlantic slave trade. The banking sector across Africa has come a long way over the last few centuries. The art of the hustle, production of goods and services, as well as their exchange for value, was not exclusive to Europe and the Far East. So other communities across Africa had their own versions of the banking process because they also had to deal with money. In parts of the continent, especially the West African coast, cowrie shells were used as money long before the beginning of the transatlantic slave trade. By the time it was abolished in the 19th century, large shipments of cowrie shells were being sent to some ports in England for shipment to the slave coast. This made the value of cowrie much greater in West Africa than in the regions from which the supply was obtained. Consequently, trade became extremely lucrative. Apart from the cowrie currency, communities employed other means of transacting business and the process of capital formation and accumulation. In Yoruba communities, Ajo served as a saving institution while Isusu was a rotating savings and credit institution. The contemporary African banking system has also evolved significantly within the last half a century. Most banks have moved from the manual banking systems in the 1980s and 1990s into digitalized services. More banks invested the last decade in banking infrastructure, including online banking and electronic transaction systems. The use of digital infrastructure has allowed domestic banks to efficiently reach a higher number of clients and compete with large foreign competitors. This digitization and the presence of a competitive climate has also improved banks' profit margins by reducing operation cost. That was an excerpt from the book The Truth About Banking by Sterling Bank. Well, we'll learn all about colonial banking and modern banking in African countries in subsequent editions. Well, sadly we have come to the end of today's show, but as usual, I'll leave you with a quote. This one is from Oil on Water by Helen Habila. Now listen to this, and I quote, "Family is worth clinging to wherever one can find it," end quote. And here's to hoping that you find your family and remember to hold on to them. Before we go, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, Radio Now Studio, and text TBIR to 0809 6822 on WhatsApp to join our book club. My name is Richard Mofe-Damijo, and today you and I spoke with the medical doctor and health advocate, Aproko Doctor Nonso Egemba, who is currently reading Mindset by Carol Dweck. What book is next? Find out on our next episode of The Book I'm Reading. The book I'm reading is brought to you by Radio Now 95.3 FM and supported by Sterling Bank. And I'm your host with probably the most, I dare say, Richard Mofe-Damijo, and I will see you next time. We out.